Welcome to the free webinar, Designing Software for Productive User Experiences. Today we're going to talk about how interfaces affect users. We're going to talk about conceptualizing user interaction to design meaningful use. We're also going to discuss how to design for collaboration. We'll talk about users' activities and performance, comparing your software with your competition's, and methods to incorporate usability into the design process. This webinar is intended for anyone who's a designer of software, who's in the software industry, or who uses technology or software on a daily basis. So let's first talk about user experience design. What is user experience design? User experience design is the experience that you give to your users who are using your software. So you want the experience to be a memorable one. You also want it to be enjoyable. You want them to keep using your product. You want it to be fun. You want it to also create some sort of excitement so that they tell other people, so that other people purchase your software as well. And if it's within an organization, creating excitement is huge because different departments purchase different software products, and you want your software product purchased. A user experience is also a positive emotional connection with the user and the product. You want your users to use the product over and over and over again. You want them to keep coming back and using it. And you want to avoid difficult to use at all costs. Now, what's involved with the user experience design? How do you get all of these functions into your software? There's many things that you can do, which we'll go through today, but performance monitoring is huge. Once your software goes out to the public, you must monitor the performance. You need to audit the performance, test the performance, and make sure that the performance was engineered correctly. Let's talk about usability now. Usability is a term that's kind of flown around all over the place lately, and there's been a lot of webinars on the topic. We've seen it in LinkedIn in our groups. But really, what is usability? Usability really requires less mental effort. It also helps your users to make fewer mistakes. So if you have a user-friendly piece of software, your users shouldn't be making hardly any mistakes at all while using it. It does help the user to accomplish a task, and it helps the user to achieve a task quicker. The software should also be fast to learn, so the training involved should be very minimum, if any. So I have this usability wheel here that kind of describes usability in a way. And so there's analysis involved, prototyping, evaluating that prototype with users, then designing again, then actually building the software, and then launching it. Now let's talk about user interface. This term gets thrown around a lot too. The interface that your users are using. Is it user-friendly? What does that even mean? Having a user-friendly interface is one that gives an overall experience for your users. Interactions with a product, your user is going to be interacting through your software. The aesthetics need to be appealing, and the overall look and feel needs to be really, really designed well. Now I want to talk and introduce you to our company, Situated Research, tell you just a little bit more about us, about myself as well. Our company, Situated Research, deals in many different areas. We have many different divisions for our company. The first one is our web design and social media division. And there we design user-friendly websites for clients. We also help them to redesign their current website. We can also help work alongside with their web team. So they could already have programmers, but they need usability assistance. Their website isn't getting them the amount of traffic that they need. so they need SEO help. Or people are coming to their website and not knowing what to do. The information isn't readily available to them. The menu navigation is too long. We need to look at that. So some companies just come to us for that information and for that assistance with usability. We're also well diverse in social media. We are huge on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and we only advertised for this webinar on LinkedIn. And we had a huge response. Thousands of you emailed in, registered, asked questions. So social media does work. So when we help our clients with their websites, we also help them to do social media marketing, so internet marketing, if you will. We're also huge in software usability as well as product usability. So we help software companies just like we're helping you folks today with this free webinar. We're going to have another one next week on products. And then the following week we have one on our video game division. So we'll actually go into how to make video games more user-friendly, how to sell more video games, how to make that hit video game. So these are the 3 divisions that we have here at our company. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Michelle Ann Sherritt. I'm the Vice President here at Situated Research, and my degree is in behavioral psychology. So that really helps, you'll find out towards the end of today's session, when we actually conduct usability research and testing for software companies. I also have over 16 years of marketing experience, and I have a strong track record of helping software companies improve their products. Currently here at Situated Research, we write books, journal articles, and we present at conferences. We also conduct free webinars on specific topics within our industry. And so if you go to the webinars page of our website, you'll see pre-recorded webinars that we've done, recorded webinars that we've done, as well as our upcoming schedule. And this summer we're launching our TV channel on YouTube, where we will be coming to you weekly and talking about usability for software, video games, and products. So a lot of interesting topics and a lot of exciting things happening starting this summer. Just a little bit more about our company called Situated Research. Situated Research was established in 2008, and it's based off of my husband, Dr. Matthew Sherritt's dissertation work. He got his PhD in May of 2008, and then at the end of 2008 we launched Situated Research. And it's based on usability, communication, video games, software, products, and websites. Our company is located in the suburbs of Chicago, and we have about 25 employees that work for us. All have excellent backgrounds. All have diverse backgrounds as well, have worked in many different industries, mostly the software industry. So some things that you're going to absolutely learn today. One major thing and that we want to convey to you is that we want you to have a better understanding of the benefits of conducting usability testing and research. We want to make sure that you understand the benefits. Towards the end of today's session, we're going to go through the pitfalls and the barriers that you run into when you're in your company and how to overcome those barriers to get usability research and testing in, because it's so important. Now, as we begin, I want you to think about everyday software tools that you use on a daily basis, either at work or at home. Maybe your children use specific pieces of software for school. You know, do these programs, are they helping you? Do some of these programs not help you at all? Do you ever become frustrated with these programs? So just think about that for a moment. Some questions to ask if you do get frustrated. Do these software tools, do they work for you all of the time? Do you ever become frustrated with any of them, whether it's tools that you use at work on your computer or at home? Do you feel like banging your head on your desk every time you use the piece of software? If you answered yes to any of these questions, have you ever thought of why you feel this way? The reason why you feel this way is because the software is not user-friendly. Usability research and testing was not conducted. It's pretty obvious when you use it. You can say these people, wow, they put a lot of thought and effort into this piece of software, and then you use other pieces of software where it's very frustrating and you don't feel like using it ever again. And a lot of people that we've tested say out loud, wow, you can tell that they didn't put much effort into this at all. So what happened? I have Darth Vader here who says, testing, I find your lack of tests disturbing. This is what users are saying when they use software that isn't user-friendly, that frustrates them, that makes them never want to use that piece of software again. And you don't want your piece of software to be the one that the users are talking about. These companies did not keep the end user, you, in mind. And if you are a software company, I'm putting this slide up because you need to know what users are thinking. Companies didn't conduct enough testing, or they didn't do any testing at all. Now, in the software development process, the typical set of tasks that a company goes through, first is the analysis. So understanding the user's needs. So this is what software companies are doing, hopefully. Then they explore and choose directions and opportunities. Then they design. They start building the system and its interface. They optimize the design in order to improve usability, hopefully. And then there's acceptance. You evaluate what was done. You continuously improve the product quality and usability. Hopefully, this is the process that your software company is going through. You want to, though, integrate usability techniques into this process. So for analysis, you would do studies, you would do interviewing, you would do surveys, user scenarios, workflow modeling, focus groups, etc. Get as much information as you can from the users that will use this piece of software. Next, you would build prototypes. Before designing or doing anything, you want to build prototypes. Use card sorting, usability testing, participatory design, etc. to get that feedback from users on potential designs that you might use. And next, you would conduct usability testing or heuristic evaluation. Sometimes surveys are involved in this step as well. Now let's talk about user experience design and what that involves. So what is the user experience? We kind of touched on this at the beginning. You want the user experience to be memorable. You want it to be enjoyable, fun, all those great things that keep people coming back to use that piece of software. This is a great chart that actually takes a development team through the process of reaching those goals. As you will see, you move from the bottom up. So first, you come up with your site objectives, your user needs. So that may involve surveying or getting user feedback or finding out what their goals are. Then you get into the content requirements. The requirements are the specifications for the piece of software that you will be developing. Then you want to structure how it's going to be laid out. How is it going to be designed? Information architecture is involved here. Interaction design, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And then the next level is navigation if it's for a website, interface design if it's for a piece of software, information design as well, and then finally the visual design. So this is the process that you should be going through to create that user experience for your users. So what really is our main objective? We want to make a product easy, effective, functional, and enjoyable to use from the user's perspective. Many times software companies come to us here at Situate Research and they say, I'm not really too sure why we need usability testing, not too sure why we need your services. We have a pretty good handle on what our customers like and what they want. When you're heavily involved in a project, your mind does not always function correctly, meaning it's focused on the project. It's not focused on who's going to be using the piece of software. It's not focused on the user's needs, even though maybe you did some analysis at the beginning, some data collection from your users, that always gets lost within the process. So when you're heavily involved in a project, you're focused on designing it, making it how you think it should be, and then putting that product out there. The user's perspective gets lost. Now let's talk about software usability, because that's why you're all here today. And when we talk about software usability, you're going to want to take some notes. The end goal for software companies is to sell as much of a good product as possible. That should be your goal. You don't want to be selling as much of your product in 2 or 3 years down the road. You want to do this right away. You don't want to be that company where you put out a piece of software, you get a bunch of complaints, and you have to put out a second iteration of it right away. You don't want to be that company. You have to design for the user, so always keep that in mind. What are you going to be designing? You need to take into account who the users are. What activities are being carried out? Where the interaction is taking place is important as well. You have to optimize the interactions users have with a product so that they can match the user's activities and needs. So we put this chart together so that you can conceptualize and visualize exactly what you are working towards. So you're developing a piece of software, and there's a bunch of months spent to develop this piece of software. So you're developing it. Hopefully you're integrating usability. Many of you who are attending today are not, so make sure that you're doing that. Involve your users, because the ultimate goal at the end is to have an exceptional product to put on the shelf for users to buy. And you want, after they buy your piece of software, to have a good experience so that they tell more people. The ultimate goal for you as a software company is to sell more and more pieces of your software. So in order to do that, you have to be designing the best design. And in order to do that, you have to understand the user's needs. What are people good and bad at? That's something to think about. Consider what might help people in the way they currently do things. Maybe you're developing a piece of software that helps a specific industry within their job on a day-to-day basis. You have to consider what's going to help them, what isn't. What will provide quality user experiences for these types of users? You have to listen to what people want and get them involved. They're the ones who are going to be spending the money and purchasing your piece of software. Use tried and tested user-centered methods all the time. So let's talk about what interaction design is, because this is huge when it comes to developing a piece of software. Designing interactive products to support the way people communicate and interact in their everyday and working lives. This is creating user experiences. You're enhancing the way we work, communicate, and sometimes interact with one another. You want to support users. You don't want to restrict them. Think in terms of the task, not in terms of the system. What are some of the goals of interaction design? You want to develop usable products. Now, usability means easy to learn, effective to use, and provide an enjoyable experience. And you want to involve users in the design process, throughout the design process. So what kind of design are we talking about? The number of other terms used emphasizing what is being designed, like user interface design, is it software design, user-centered design, product design, are we developing a website, are we strictly focusing on experience? Interaction design is the umbrella term covering all of these aspects. It's fundamental to all disciplines, fields, and approaches concerned with researching and designing computer-based systems for people. Now, I love this little clip that we found. If too many cooks are in the kitchen, there's too many people involved in the design process of a piece of software or a product or a website or a video game, whatever you're designing. Today, we're specifically talking about pieces of software. But there are too many cooks in the kitchen everywhere. Think about the organization of your company and who's involved every time you develop a new piece of software. You probably have 20 or more people. Everybody's giving input. Now, some companies try to restrict this input to just the development teams. They have a development team of 10 to 15 people, but all those people have ideas. All those people are contributing. All those people are putting down ideas as well. All those people think that their idea is the best. So there's too many people in the kitchen. Let's talk about HCI and interaction design. HCI is human-computer interaction. Now, in interaction design, you have all of these disciplines all around the circle that are involved with interaction design. You have ergonomics, psychology, informatics, engineering, computer science, social sciences, human factors, product design, arts design. You have all of these involved. It's an interdisciplinary field. Now, when you're working in multidisciplinary teams at your company, many people have different backgrounds, and they're all involved. You have many different perspectives and ways of seeing and talking about things. Now, the benefits to this is that more ideas come out of it, and designs are generated, more designs. But the disadvantages are that it's difficult to communicate and progress forward the design that's being created because too many people are involved. Now, here's the trade research. This is our edge. This is what puts us in front of what you could call our competition. But because of our edge, we really don't have any competition. Usability firms don't have interdisciplinary degreed PhDs on staff. We're the only ones in the country. And when we did our market research, we ventured out to companies overseas as well. And you don't have any companies, I mean, challenge me, find one, and I'll never say this again, but you'll never find a usability company that has a PhD on staff that has an interdisciplinary degree in all of these different areas. When you're working within a software company, each one of these areas is a person that's involved. Here at Situate Research, we have one person, our edge, Dr. Matthew Sherritt. He's got an interdisciplinary degree in communication and information sciences. It's a PhD. He specializes in user experience research and usability testing within software, video games, and products. His degree is encompassed within interactive marketing and behavioral psychology, interaction analysis and participatory design, human engagement, motivation, and activity, cross-cultural communication and regional cultural dimensions. He specializes in collaborative work, distributed cognition, and online communities. And human-computer action and mental models, cognitive psychology, are all involved within his interdisciplinary degree. We're a one-stop shop. We have an edge. And because you use someone like this for your usability research and testing, it's an unbiased approach that we take. When we come in, we're not involved in the politics of your company. We're not involved with trying to compete with one another within your company. We're not involved in promotions and people trying to give the best ideas so that they look good in front of their bosses. We're our own entity. We come in and we help you to make your software better, to make it more user-friendly. Now, some usability goals that you need to have are that your software is effective. So effectiveness is huge. Efficiency is huge. You don't want people to spend a lot of time trying to complete a task when using your piece of software. The reason why you developed the piece of software was to make life easier for the user. Safety is a concern. Utility, learnability, and memorability are all your usability goals. So how do interfaces affect users? You want them to have an emotional response, okay? And you could do this through expressive icons, dynamic icons, animations, voices, sounds. Shapes, fonts, colors, and graphical elements as well also influence pleasure for the user who's using your piece of software. You don't want your user to have frustration because the piece of software doesn't work or doesn't do what the user wants, or the expectations of the user when they purchased your piece of software just weren't met. You don't want information to be lacking. You definitely don't want error messages to come up. And that kind of gets us into the difference between usability and quality assurance. We run into this problem whenever we talk to video game companies, not so much software companies, but sometimes we do, where they think that quality assurance testing is the same as usability testing. It's not. It's two different worlds. Quality assurance testing is where you're testing to make sure that things work, they function correctly. Error messages don't come up. Usability, we're more focused on the user's experience and what they're going to be running into because they're the purchaser of the software or the product. We're more concerned with them. We do quality assurance testing here at Situated Research, but our main focus is usability. Now that you know the difference, let's move on. Some other frustrating components of pieces of software for users is the appearance. They don't want things flashing at them. They don't want avatars popping up talking to them. They just want to use the piece of software. They don't want bright colors looking at them. They don't want dark backgrounds with white text. They just want it to be simple. And you don't want to cause frustration by giving them too many steps to complete a task. Now, some of you need to design your products for collaboration. So humans are social, and this extends to interfaces that you're developing. So there's synchronous communication, which is live, and there's asynchronous communication, which is sort of back and forth behind the scenes. There's also CMC, which can be combined with other activities. Now, synchronous communication can be talking. It can be video phones. It can be video conferencing. It can be any sort of media space where you're talking back and forth with someone. Texting, IMing. The benefits to synchronous communication are that it's instant. You're instantly getting a response. It's like having a conversation with someone face-to-face. Some problems with this is that most of the time it's through the internet. So even if you have video conferencing or you're texting or you're talking through IM, it is instant. However, some problems are that you're writing or you're texting or you're typing and they do get the information right away, but interpretation can come back wrong. I know many times I've IM'd people and then they got the wrong idea about what I wrote. And I can't hear their voice, so I don't know exactly if they have frustration or if they don't. Now, asynchronous communication is like email or snail mail or bulletin boards, news groups. The benefits to this that we're finding with users is that a lot of people are kind of hiding behind the scenes now. A lot of people aren't going to networking events anymore. They're using LinkedIn and other social networks to kind of do that. The problems with that is that we're losing that human interaction. We're losing the way that we communicate with one another. So these are all things to think about if you're developing a piece of software that has communication as a function of it. Now, some people say, why go to the length to do usability testing or to use usability research? Why do this? It really helps the designers out. It helps the designers to understand how to design interactive products that fit with what people want, need, and may desire. The designers can appreciate that one size does not fit all. We had a software company that came to us that was designing a product for elderly people, and they made the fonts huge. Well, I'm sorry, but not all elderly people are blind. Not all elderly people need big fonts. So it helps the designers to appreciate that one size does not fit everybody who's going to be a user. They have to identify any incorrect assumptions they may have about particular user groups, like in that situation. They must be aware of both people's sensitivities and their capabilities. Designers are too involved in what they're designing. They're just designing the product, the piece of software, to pump it out, get it done, make their bosses happy. They're not thinking about the user. Now, some barriers that you may come into when suggesting usability research and testing, it could be psychological. You could be thinking to yourself, we don't need this. We have a whole team of people who can help and assist. Or it may be organizational. Your bosses may be totally against it, saying, oh, it's too much, costs too much, we'll add time, yada, yada. Some people say involving users, so getting that user feedback, will only lengthen the development timelines and time to get the piece of software to market. It's going to lengthen that whole process. That's a false misconception because it doesn't. If anything, it speeds up that process because usability research and testing is done in conjunction during the development process. You're doing it at the same time. And the great thing about outsourcing it to a company like Situated Research is that you get that expertise from Dr. Matthew Sherritt, but you also get that we're doing that part for you while you're developing. We can get you that instant feedback right away. Some people say usage scenarios and usability testing just add to the already sky-high number of requirements that we're dealing with. No, because you're outsourcing it. Situated Research is doing it for you, so you're not dealing with that. Some people say, well, we already have enough trouble managing our product development process, and adding users into the mix will make the process even more chaotic. Again, you're not working with the users. You're not doing the usability testing or research. We are, or whoever you outsource to do it. The more information you get to develop your piece of software to make it better, wouldn't you want that? Some people say it's problematic to get money and the permission from the projects to do this. It's not easy to get permission to spend money on doing usability. A lot of people have the misconception that usability costs an arm and a leg. It doesn't. And if you think about it in the long run, the money that you spend on usability helped to improve your piece of software. It helped you to sell more because people are going to enjoy your piece of software. They're going to tell others. Word of mouth is going to happen. People are going to connect on social media. They're going to talk about the piece of software, which in turn will improve your revenue. So you're going to get that money back. So what can we do to overcome these barriers? Well, there's many things that you can do at your company if you are running into these barriers. You have to analyze your project variables first. Then you have to think about your users. And then think about your budget. You have to plan to use usability. And then you have to manage it. Bottom line. So why do some software projects fail? And you're probably thinking, I already know the answer to that because they're not doing usability research and testing. Well, that's part of it. But they have poor requirement specifications to begin with. They don't know what the users want. They have a bad relationship management between the customers and the developers. So what can you do to prevent these situations? To prevent your piece of software from being that piece of software where people are like, oh, dude, don't use that. It doesn't work. It doesn't do what you want. It sucks. Don't buy it. You have to be actively introducing usability during your software development process. Bottom line, you have to be doing it. It's going to save you time and money in the long run. It's going to save you from being that company that people are talking about, not in a good way, but in a bad way. And it's going to save you from being that company that puts out a piece of software and 2 months down the road has to reproduce something quickly that's better because you had too many people who were complaining about it. So what are the benefits of usability? Business success is huge. You're going to increase your sales and revenue. You're going to improve features within your piece of software by having usability incorporated. You're going to get better user performance, increased productivity. If you're developing a piece of software for a certain type of industry that people are using at work in their day-to-day work, you are going to increase that company's productivity. Guess what? Those companies that buy your piece of software that you do that for are going to keep buying your software because it helps their productivity. It helps their revenue as well. You're going to decrease training and support costs. You're going to reduce the development time and costs involved. You're also going to reduce maintenance costs. You don't want to be that software company that puts out a piece of software and 2 months down the road or 5 months down the road has to put out something else quickly to satisfy their users because you botched up the first piece of software. Increased customer satisfaction is huge. You're going to increase it. You're going to get more word of mouth. Social media is huge right now. And people are on social media tools and they're talking about pieces of software all the time. You want to limit your chances of having to save your company by coming out with a new version quickly to satisfy customers because the first time failed. You don't want to be that company. So what we can do now that sort of ends the webinar is go into questions. So if you do have questions, you can type them in your upper right-hand corner in your questions box. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and go through our upcoming webinars that we have coming up in the next couple of weeks. The first one that we have is on May 13th, and it's on designing effective products and incorporating usability to ensure profitability. So to learn more about that webinar and what we're going to be talking about, just visit the webinars page on our website. The next free webinar coming up is on website user-friendliness, communicating effectively with your customers, and that's going to be on May 16th. And lastly is game psychology, designing hit video games. We're going to teach you how to do that and incorporate usability into that design process. That will be broadcasted on May 19th. So while you're still writing your questions, I will leave you with our contact information. So again, our company is called HCI Research. You can email me any questions that you have, or if you're interested in our services, just send me an email at info@hciresearch.com. You can also call our office at 630-522-0855, or you can visit us on the internet at www.hciresearch.com. Now I'm looking and I don't see any questions, which sometimes does happen. So if you do have questions, do feel free to send me an email. You can send me questions whenever you want at info@hciresearch.com. I want to thank you all for attending today. I hope that the webinar was helpful for you. And if you have questions about what we have to offer, please do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you so much and have a wonderful afternoon.